I want to call Rabea for our next session. You will remember Rabea as the person who's responsible for killing Zoom and is leaving Japan in March. So any Japan plans, you have only like 4 months.
Okay, I have different qualities than only battling Zoom and leaving Japan. So, who of you has children in the room? Raise your hands. Good. Who of you has girls? Better. Then I'd like you to be quiet and listen to our next session because this session concerns you. So, do I have your attention? Yes. Thank you. So I like to, they say it's the graveyard shift, so do prove me wrong. I want all of you alert, and I hope that you enjoyed your lunch, and I'm very happy that I get to be even more an intense part of the conference now. So we will discuss a very imperative issue now. I said it, education, the intersection of gender equity, access to education, and the digital age's potential to bridge the gender gap in education and differential earning capacity, which means nothing more than closing the pay gap through education. So in an era where digital tools and platforms possess transformative powers, it's crucial to also examine the role of fostering a bias-free education environment. And our esteemed panelists today will share their insights on persistent challenges that innovation initiatives and those that are being taken. And we talk about the gaps that exist in the primary and higher education ecosystems. And we also talk about the challenges that are needed to ensure equity in the access of work, in wealth, and well-being through education. So we will focus on the power of technology and how this can also be best leveraged for its purpose. So I've been asked to keep the time, so I will dive right into the introduction of our panelists, and I like to call up Dr. Urvashi Sahni. Please join me here on stage. Dr. Sahni is a social entrepreneur, a women's rights activist, an educationist who has been a pioneering activist in the fields for more than 3 decades. She is also a leading expert in curriculum design and reform, teacher training, and education governance with a special focus on girls' education and gender equality. She has founded Suraksha, a women's rights organization. She has founded Didis, a social enterprise for sustainable livelihoods for women, and the Study Hall Education Foundation, CHEF. Currently, she is the CEO of CHEF and the president. So over the last 36 years, Dr. Sahni's work through CHEF has impacted 100,000 teachers and 5 million children, most of whom are girls from disadvantaged communities. Thank you very much for being here today. And then I like to call up Maheshwer Peri. Mahesh is the founder of Career 360 discovery and counseling platform, helping students to make informed career choices. So, warm welcome to you. He started his career as an investment banker at the SBI Capital Markets and was a publisher of the Outlook Group for 12 years. Mahesh believes in the power and need of education for the future of India and its demographic dividend. And with Career 360, he turned an entrepreneur in 2009, and today Career360.com gets about 450 million student visits a year. So Mahesh is active to make education accessible, affordable, and institutions transparent. There you have him. And then I'd like to call up Begur Ramachandra. Begur, please join us here. He is currently the education specialist of UNICEF, the India country office in New Delhi. He leads the overall policy and planning education area at UNICEF with a focus on gender, and equity and system strengthening, and he strives to improve the learning of children, teacher education, climate change, and other curricular areas of school education. And he has been working in that sector for over 25 years, during which he has worked in close collaboration with national and state governments, civil society organizations, and university departments. So thank you for joining us, Begur. And last but not least, we have Shreyasi Singh to make this panel gender balanced. So please come up here. So she is the founder and CEO of Harappa, a learner-centered institution of the future that is committed to delivering programs that drive transformative career, using Thrive skills, an essential set of cognitive, social, and behavioral skills to enable individuals to continuously succeed in every stage of their career. She also has written 2 books on entrepreneurships, including the book that is called The Girl Who Thinks in Numbers. I really like that. And she was also part of the founding team of the Women's Only Management Program. And I have to say this, she jokingly refers to herself as the 2%. You have to explain this later on. This is a nod to the dismal number of women CEOs in India. So, warm welcome to all our panelists, and thank you for your attention now. So, several countries, and I have been asked to start the panel with a look at an example where things are working. So, several countries like Sweden have incorporated gender equity directly through their education policies, be it through curriculum design, teacher training, or encouraging co-education. And those policies, I do want to set the stage by looking at Sweden indeed. Those policies that Sweden masters, they include equal opportunities for children, students across socioeconomic backgrounds. That means low tuition fees for all. It means that Sweden has managed a higher representation in the STEM fields by looking at their curricula, by promoting presence of girls in STEM courses, by questioning educational establishment, by handing out ICT equipment fairly. They also are better at networking with women professionals, and they also have implemented across country mentoring schemes for female role models, something that probably will come up in our discussion quite a bit. And they also have mastered mandatory internship in businesses, also for women. So these are just some ideas to set the stage for our discussion. To come back to us, we will draw from such examples and discuss then what education policy reforms you believe in India and South Asia could adopt or be adapted to achieve greater gender equality. And we will also delve into the systemic inequalities and that are entrenched in patriarchal views. We've talked about this in the morning, that will impact education environments, and we will draw on those best practices and explore intervention and policy measures. So with this, I will take a seat in the middle. So with you, and so is this on? Yes. So that's nicer to be closer to you. So I will go on now into our discussions, and I will address for a bit our panelists. And of course, we make plenty room for your questions. We have learned that there is numerous need for discussion. We are very, very happy about your active engagement. But as moderator, I take the liberty to address first Dr. Sahni. So, please. What are the glaring inequities that are existing in India's education system in the primary and secondary school? And what would you think is the most challenging issues for empowering girls, especially girls from underprivileged backgrounds. And after that, of course, I will quickly take a look at your engagement with Chef and how this could play in. So please, you have the first word. Share your experience with us. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Talentnomics, Ipsita, for inviting me. You know, when we talk about the issues that plague the education system, I think we should talk more about the issues that plague the society. In one word, it is patriarchy. The patriarchal society is what plagues the education system. In terms of enrollment, we have more enrollment now than we've ever had in all sectors. Even in higher education, women are entering. But has that led to a change in the life outcomes, right? So when we talk about education, when we heard a lot about that in the first panel and the second, that the key seems to be education. I just want to briefly mention that I come from Pune, and I went to St. Mary's School, which if anyone is from Pune, know it to be a very good school. At one time, at my time, it was #1 in the country for girls' school. And you know what? I topped. And guess what? The next year, I was 15 when I topped, I was 17 when I was engaged and married off. Okay? So here's the thing. My school gave me many academic skills, the best, but didn't teach me an important lesson that I was equal and that I had a right to use those academic skills for myself. And I think what plagues the education system is that we don't teach lessons of equality. We don't teach the important lesson that girls are equal, which is why women with PhDs, medical school, they still don't think of themselves as equal. They still think they need to do that and excel at everything else at home, carry that double burden till they are half dead. And they need to do that. So in terms of what goes on in education, and of course education mirrors society, what happens is enrollment is not as much of an issue right now. But what we're not looking at is attendance. Who stays home when the mother is sick, when there is need to look after the siblings, or the mother dies? Who steps in? It's the girl. Who gets married off very early because of poverty, because of cultural issues, that, you know, the sooner you get them married off. So even though our girls are getting educated, transition rates are a problem. Look at the outcomes in the workplace, we heard about that, very low. Look at the high rates of child marriage in our communities. Look at the fact that workplace involvement, STEM of course is one subject, and in leadership, all corporate and in political leadership. So even though we have more enrollment, because we are not making an effort to directly challenge patriarchy in our curriculum, you know, which we should be doing, having critical dialogues about patriarchy, about child marriage, about domestic violence, about the power structure in the family, about the power structure in society, and having girls question that, teaching them that they have a right to protest, build a voice and agency. We are not doing that. We are not doing that directly, and we are not doing that tacitly. There is a hidden curriculum at play. And I'll give you a quick example. There was this girl, and this is a rural school in UP. And I found that she was in class 3 and she didn't even know her alphabet. So I asked the teacher, I was doing a research project there. I said, why is she in class 3? She doesn't even know how to write the... He said, you should ask Master Saab, the principal, because he says all girls must be pushed up, whether they know anything or not. So I collared Master Ji. And I said, Master Ji, why are you doing this? So he says, Arey, you don't know. They have to get married. Class 5 ka certificate ho, and then they have to get married. So that's why I want them to move up, because parents will marry them off. The girls are listening to this. The mothers are listening to this, right? Of course, I challenge that, which I won't go into. But the point is, there are many such things that keep happening. So whereas the curriculum doesn't address it, though we've been through gender scan after gender scan after gender scan, right? But it's all right, you see those images, and that does have an effect. But are we dealing with those directly? We are not. And we should be doing that, and that's my policy recommendation. I've been doing this for many years now, but making that policy recommendation. But the point is that we don't do it directly, And we don't take care of what are the covert and the tacit lessons that we are teaching our girls and boys. The examples we give. Girls don't come to school, we don't bother to find out. Teachers, very few teachers bother to find out. When they get married off, they kind of accept it and shrug. They don't intervene, which they should be doing. They are not advocates for girls' rights, and they are not teaching girls to be advocates of girls' rights. They are not stopping boys or not challenging the toxic masculinity that patriarchy develops in the classroom. So when you ask me what creates this, it is the fact that schools are doing very little to counter patriarchal societal norms which are holding girls back. They are not doing that, and they should be doing that very actively. At Chef, we have been doing that. We have built a critical feminist pedagogy curriculum for girls and for boys. We've been doing it not only in our own schools, but also with all the KGBVs, many government schools, training teachers. And our message is very clear. We want to teach girls that, hey, listen, you're equal. I learned that lesson with all my privilege coming from St. Mary's School. At the ripe old age of 28, mother of 2, is when I realized I was equal. At night. And I had good sense not to say it out loud, because I know people won't like that, right? And so we must teach our girls that, hey, you're equal, and you have the right to everything else, and you have the right to choice. Right? And teach our boys that patriarchy is not your fault. But you know what? It's so cruel to your sisters, your mothers, your aunts, and guess what? Not very good for you too. So what are you going to do to change it? And for that, it's not important just to say that. You let them grapple with the issues and create the space in the classroom for them to do it and make it part of the official curriculum. Because if you're going to get rid of the patriarchal structure, then we have to fight it. And we have to fight it. We have to teach our children, give them the tools to deconstruct it in their heads, in their lives, and then, of course, draw in families, because they must also grapple with this. We've done it with great success in our organization, and I think it's perfectly doable. But we need, the NEP says, great importance given to gender equality. Gender-sensitive curriculum, we need to change that language also. No, we need gender education from class 1 onwards as an official and compulsory part of the curriculum with good trained teachers who can facilitate these critical dialogues. And I'm going to stop.
Thank you very much. My pressing question is, of course, how receptive teachers are to all of this. But before I come back to you, please stall that. Teachers is a good keyword. I would like to turn to Begur, because he's been working with also a lot of teachers setting the agenda for education. So my question to bring you into the discussion, Begur, as UNICEF works closely with national and state governments in support of policy implementation, in your experience, would you please tell us what are the existing inequities that you have witnessed in the education system, and what are the proactive policy intervention that you have been undertaken and you think should be undertaken to have a more equal education system, and maybe also dive to the question of teachers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks again, Talent Economics, for this. I'll take this in twofold. One is about inequities that exist that are barriers for, support to acceleration thing. The second is around what does you said that policies and teachers can make a difference. One, I think, as Sahni said, that about enrollments are no longer an issue. It means when we talk about participation, I think participation of both boys and girls are there. One of the important or critical things is access to quality, good education. Now, one is access, second is what of education. Quality means what? What are we talking about it? I think that becomes very, very critical. Now, the issues or challenges that we are talking about it in terms of inclusion, gender, all those things are there or not. Now, I would like to dwell upon in the morning one of the things that we also need to look at data and analysis related. Now, if you look at it, even in terms of participation, at the enrollment level, At the primary level, it is okay. At the primary level, to some of you, it's up to grade 5, to put it more specifically. Now the problem or challenge starts is after grade 5. Means when child is at 10 plus, now you can see the steep decline in the continuity of education. Already, the participation or going to school itself start declining. And especially more so after grade 8, what we talk of secondary education and higher secondary itself is an issue and challenge even right now. If we are talking about it, across it varies anywhere between children not completing 25% to 50%. It is still the participation of girls in schools is the major challenge, and that is something which probably we need to look at it much more closely in terms of policy. Probably I can commit where there need to be a more focus on secondary education as well. That's point one. The second is on quality. Now, when we are talking about quality education, it's multidimensional. There are many players into that. Be it we are talking about curriculum, teacher training, and at the end of the day, it is what happens in the classrooms. I think the important thing, and some of the examples I can quote is here, is are we providing real opportunities for the children to participate in the classroom teaching learning processes, pedagogical processes? I think one of the initiatives which has been done by the Government of India and also the state governments is what you might know as activity-based learning. Now, that activity-based learning actually proved, what was existing of one-way transaction in the classroom to a real participatory and facilitative, teaching learning process. What does it did? Teacher is more of a facilitator. There is an opportunity for children to interact among themselves and also provided an opportunity to go in a way that through graded way. Suppose I am at a different level, the pedagogical process provided opportunity for what we used to call in this as individual learning. And that itself was able to relate with the children and things in such a way that the challenges in terms of, the way children sit physically in the classrooms started, mingling in terms of learning processes. That's where it started. I think some of the initiatives of this kind, which really changed the classroom dynamics in terms of classrooms, of what activity-based learning, which was initially in the very primary grade, and the quality aspects is proved to be significant difference. The second part, I would go to the next stage. That's the upper primary or the secondary grade. There are many challenges, as we know that when girls entered in the age of puberty, and then there are support. The issue or question comes is, are we creating a protective learning environment in the classroom? Now, protective learning environment doesn't necessarily happens at the classroom itself. I'm a child in a remote area. I need to travel to the school. Now, going from my home to the school, the real road transport, or for that matter, the safety part of it, is being provided or not. We have seen in terms of, there is a program called School Safety and Security Interventions, where the issues of challenge of safety probably had been taken care much in a pronounced way and at scale, where certain pilots have introduced that safety in terms of, the transport facilities have been given in a couple of states. Also in the classroom, when the challenges with regard to bullying, that would also lead to violence, how are we addressing that? So these are some things that really affect it. And to give an example around that, you might have heard some of you, Meena Manchas, are just to say that school platforms, adolescent school platforms. Now these are a group of young children, especially they come as a group at the school level and discuss many things, right from the way elected representatives, democratical processes that happen, and also on each of the subgroups. There are this Meena Munch, which is called just an adolescent platform. One would talk about health, one would talk about education, one would talk about nutrition. Now it's also about protection and digital safety. Now, these are the opportunities where they will express freely. The importance part of is expressing freely about their challenges and also relating to the immediate environment, the beliefs that they hold at the home and what you are being encountered at the school level. Now, this proved in most of the states, it's called in different names. In some states, it's Meena Rajumans, it's some states just Meena. It's more of a character that's named. Those things provided fair opportunities for both boys and girls. It's like girls not speaking, but also it's also at times encouragement for them to speak. The idea is that, especially when we are talking of, quality, the importance of is critical dialogue. I think the critical dialogue in terms of looking at the belief systems as well, they say, just a point of view at that age. What is that I come with point of view? And then you slowly navigate into, changing or making a difference in terms of one, awareness about certain issues, including gender and other things. Second, it's about negotiations, because something that happens at the home level, but you are being taught something else at the school level. Now, how you are able to negotiate or talk about it? Where do we do that? And the third is about freely expressing that, yes, I do have my point of view and I can express. And also, through that process, you can make a difference. So, there are certain examples of this kind which have been successfully piloted, but some also could be scaled up, which is happening. But at the end of the day, I would say that it's not about just scaling up, just blindly. It is about the context-specific differential strategies that are required. If you are talking about a remote situation in education, in a where there is a need for different language, multilingual education comes in. The very transaction in the primary gates would be different. So quality affects the transaction itself in terms of there is a difference in the language itself, teacher and the students and the other groups are speaking. So it's a multivariated. I would stop here, I know. Maybe I will come back if there are more experience around. But at the end of the day, I would say that now with the digital access related, that is something which we need to do. There are several studies. We saw that access to digital services for girls itself is a huge challenge, and what can be done. Sorry, thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Begur. That was a good keyword for the second part of this discussion, all the artificial intelligence and technology session. I do want to briefly, because before we leave to the higher education sector and to the technical solutions, I want to come back to you with that question, how receptive teachers are. Begur gave us a number of good keywords. The real opportunities in the classroom is one that I would also like to have your opinion on.
What opportunity?
The real opportunities in the classroom.
Okay. I'm just going to take off from a little that Begur said about quality education. I think we really need to look very carefully at what quality means. I told you I went to St. Mary's, high quality education, and look what happened. That's why I went into education. I said, hey, that wasn't quality education, because it didn't teach me lessons of equality which it should have taught, right? The vision for our organization is to educate everyone for gender equality, social justice, personal flourishing, and active democratic citizenship. No talk of academics at all in that, because we believe that quality means it should lead to quality of life. And that's a quality education. There must be lessons of life too. So I think quality education needs to be defined very much. To your question, how do teachers respond to this? Very interesting. The women take to it like a duck takes to water when we train them, because they have all been through it. They are crying because for the first day, we get them to look at how gender has played in their own lives. Men are a whole other story. They push back saying that your statistics are all wrong. This is Western propaganda. Okay. Then one of them told me, "Ab thoda bahut jaldi nahi kar rahe to change everything." I said, "How many more do you want to mare?" And then when you talk about men sharing housework, oh my God, wo to saap sook jata hai. And so once I had to say in Rajasthan, I was training, they were all principals, all men. All co-ed schools, principals, all men. 71 model schools. So I told him, I said, sir, इतना खौफ क्यों है? अरे बम नहीं है, पतीला है. और झाड़ू है, बंदूक नहीं है. इतना क्यों डर रहे हैं? Now, only what I wasn't getting was they prefer the bum and the banduk, right? So, I mean, what is all this patila and jhadu nonsense? Anyway, so my point is that there is pushback from men, but you have to work harder. So we are working in Sitapur district, in Leherpur block, where we developed a curriculum for boys and how they can rethink the critical dialogues with them and learn lessons of equality. Very simply put, you want equality in classrooms, teach them how to think equal. Right? And you do that when you engage in these critical, and let them grapple with the notions, right? So over there we had, but for the first training, it was really tough. But then you do it again, and you do it again, and you keep on doing it till they get it. And eventually, when they get it is when you let them take it, build an empathy personally. What are the problems that have happened to women in your lives, in your families? That's when they begin to respond to their daughters, right? And you treat them as persons too. Let's deal with your gender problems too. And that's when they come around. So yes, with men it is harder. With boys also there's a pushback because they start thinking that they're being blamed. Which is why it's very important to let them know that patriarchy is not their fault, especially small children, and to work on empathy with them. And with women teachers, much easier, though it still takes time to deconstruct their patriarchal notions. Women are very patriarchal too because they've been raised in that. And they don't think of themselves as equal, never mind their students. So try to teach them these things. So the opportunities in the classroom you spoke of, you know, they abound with opportunities. There is no, for example, I'll give you a very simple example with boys when we were talking to them. So I asked the boys, it was a language class, small boys, 13, 14. I said, beta, aap batao, Hindi good for everyone? Okay. What do you do? Can you give us your schedule of the day? What do you do? So they told us we do this, and then we go out to play in the playground. I said, and what about Didi, your sister? They said, no, she doesn't go out to play in the playground. I said, why? She said, she didn't like to. She said, no, there's work at home and it's not safe. Of course, meaning, we don't want to talk about that. I said, no, but does she like it? She said, no, she's all right. She plays at home, she studies. She helps mommy with everything. I said, why don't you ask her and come back? So they asked, assignment, homework, go find out. Came back. And I said, so what did you find out? Itne se muh, small faces. They said, no, they want to go out and play. I said, oh, really? So then what should we do about that? So after a lot of things, one of them says, we'll take them with us, and then mommy and papa will let us take them. I said, what about that housework? Who's doing that? And how? No, that mummy will do later. I said, not working yet. Mummy has extra work then. So one of them very quietly says, we'll help her, then we'll both go out together. I said, yeah. I said, now let's write about that. So you can use many opportunities to do that. We use drama a huge amount in the classroom and on the stage because, see, it gives you a safe space to rehearse negotiation, to rehearse indignation. How do you say it? And I might be talking about how my father treated me. He's in the audience. But I'm not saying my father. I'm playing a role. So he can't yell at me. But guess what? He's hearing that voice. And we have had parents change their decisions about child marriage because they saw it happen on stage. So it's a very safe space with no real consequences. We use that. And then we play it back to the parents. Every parent-teacher meeting has a gender issue that we discuss. Our teachers are trained and KGBV teachers, to actively intervene whenever a child marriage issue comes up, domestic violence, child is not available. Okay, let's call up. Let's find out what's going on. And then we find out and we can intervene. So we managed to bring all that down. But importantly, we must we must understand that you're not bringing about gender equity only by working in the classroom. You can do a lot there. But you have to think of what is going on outside. And we have to redefine quality to make it a good quality education is one that leads to a good quality life in all its multiple dimensions. And in terms of girls, teaches them that they're equal, teaches them that they're autonomous persons worthy of respect, have the right to protest, have the right to negotiate, and to give them agency, which is totally free. India has no free women. So.
Thank you very much for this very important intervention. Now, you will receive a number of questions, I'm sure. But you led the path to the older girls and the issues that we have in higher education. And this is your keyword. So, Mahesh, you want to talk about the gender diversity in India across higher education ecosystem. So you want to alert us on the context of the current scenario, and you have been involved with the higher education and preparing men and women for the workforce. My question to you then is, apart from your notes now, what gender-related inequities do you see in the higher education system? Floor is yours.
So thank you for calling me here, first of all. I'm happy that I'm here because this is something that I've been actively working on in terms of creating diversity in education workspace, education space. Because unless you have greater diversity at education, people will not understand, have greater empathy, they will not understand the poor versus the rich, the fair agenda versus the guys, and so on and so forth. So for me, the issue of gender diversity has been something that, not just gender diversity, socio-economic diversity. Diversity is something that really, really bothered me. Now, one is to build pressure groups from the bottom and try to, work the way most of you are working. But two is to work on the policy to ensure that it actually happens. And I personally think that in the Indian context, you might actually have to work on the policy side of it while you keep working on the pressure groups. I'll give you an example. In 2016, the number of girl students in IITs were 10%. Then the IIT Council got together, said that this cannot be done. You need to have more women in the thing. And they created a 20% supernumerary seats. Right? From 1,000 students who were in IITs across the country in 2017, today we have 2,990. That's the current batch. Right? Similarly, at IIMs also, you actually had, IIM Trichy and all did that. They created a 30% compulsory reservation, you call it reservation or affirmative action or whatever it is. And it is not to please the women as much as to make everyone in the classroom understand everyone around. It is not to please a section of the society. It's not to please a certain set of agenda. It is about saying that, listen, if you go out to the market and work with a Unilever, you need to understand what the other side is, because 50-60% consumers are those. So any which ways, for greater understanding of each other, you need to have a greater diversity, right? Across the board. The challenge is not just at higher education. I think it's much beyond. It's at professional education, and that's where we need to start attacking. In fact, up to higher education also, the ratio, gender ratio is 51-49. 51 in favor of the girls. 51 in favor of the girls at undergrad level also. The challenge is at professional education, where it's 40-60. Only 40% students are girls and 60% are boys, right? So the more you move up, which means that these people are going through the normal education process of getting a degree for themselves. It's a normal process. You get into a school, then you get into college, then you go into a degree program, and then you move on from there. But professional education, the moment you come to it, you actually realize that the data is dramatic. For example, in postgraduate, 66% are pursuing postgraduate are girls. So you go to any college, you will actually have master's programs, more girls there, 66%. And this is Aisha data, which is All India School and Higher Education data, which is the most comprehensive data that you have. But when you come down to professional education, it's only 41%. So the parents are, and this is to do with mobility. Professional colleges are slightly less accessible. And because they're less accessible, the guys have a prerogative of going there. And the girls are not allowed to go out of the place, so they go and study in a neighborhood degree college, right? So increasingly what's happening is wherever you have a policy framework, like look at it, in India, the total number of vice chancellors who are women are 7%, right? In UK, the top 200 THE universities, 48 of them are women vice chancellors. In India, about 10 years back, the number of IAS officers were only 9% women. Today it's 21%, they're actively moving. By the way, in each batch, they're trying to ensure that it should be 30%, right? So it's about ensuring that, see, you need to create a secure space for these people to say, come what may, we'll take you in. No matter what your merit is, no matter whether you have the ability, no matter whether it's affordable or not, we'll make you come in. I'll give you one more data. The private versus government, there are more girls studying in government colleges in a similar program as compared to the ones in a private program. You know why it happens? Affordability. The parent is willing to pay fees for his son to go and study in a professional college, whereas the girl has to secure it in the government college, only then she is made to study. Right? And these are all data points that I'm talking about. I'm not talking of anything which is beyond the thing. And this is iShare data or every single data point that you have. So I think while we are all working on pressure groups, which is and fantastic work that some of you guys are doing, I think you need to build up pressure from the bottom up to ensure that there is change in policy so that it all benefits. Because you can't make people change a heart. India is a very law-compliant country. You know, we are so law-compliant that we are very pliant, right? The thing is, we need to use that pliant society to say, how do you ensure that in your office 30% are women? In your college, 30% has to be girls. In your professional program, 30%. And you give that quota, basically saying if you want 100 seats, you need to have 30 girls as women. See what happens. All these guys will market themselves to ensure that 30 girls come in because they can get the other 70 in. So you just need to work on it from a policy level while all of you are working on it at a, really the work that you guys are doing is brilliant, but I think policy is very, very important in this space. Thanks.
Thank you very, very, very much, Manesh. I have a lot of nodding here on my left side. And I'm sure you can add plenty of points to the ongoing debate. You have your technology platform, so you are a part of the innovative change that we all need. What is the inspiration behind your technology platform and how has it contributed towards the reducing gender inequity as compared to traditional education system? This is my key question to you, but of course you will have many more things to say in answer to him.
Yes.
So please go ahead.
No, fascinating discussion and so much to learn from my panelists. I think the context is not about having a technology platform. I mean, the technology platform is really something that affordably and efficiently can mainstream important education, right? It is an access thing. But I think the context of at Harappa Upgrad, we essentially work with enterprises. We're an enterprise learning firm. So in the last 5 years, we worked with 250 plus enterprises and around 1 million learners in India, mostly in India, but abroad. And our learners are from the age groups of 28 to 50, because we actually work with professionals. And the point that Mahesh was saying, or even what Dr. Sahni was saying, the fact is education for what? You know, education for equity doesn't mean the access to education should be equitable. It's truly life outcomes. And there, I call it the, women's careers. Women's careers have become like the greatest obstacle course in history. Women's careers have become the greatest obstacle course in history. You actually begin in many segments of the economy at 45% in the beginning. And you refer to the 2% number, which is actually the 5% number that I ironically call myself, and Dr. Sahni is part of that 5% statistic, that only 5% of CEOs in India are women, only 8% of CFOs in India are women, only 10% of all management positions are held by women in India. The fact is, when we talk about education for equity, education for ambition is, I think, what we need to speak much more about. And it's actually at the workplace when you have financial wealth, financial assets, is when you're truly, when really the education is worth it. Education isn't worth it for a degree. And there I feel like in a lot of these conversations, we don't look enough at the role employers have to play as both educators, because most of us start working at 22, 23, most of us will live till 85, and most of us will either have to or choose to work till the time we're 75, 80. It's actually 50 years of your life really is spent as a working professional. And there is some interaction with an employer in whatever capacity that you work with. So I think the employer as an educator, conversation is super, super critical. And in that sense, I think in India, which is at the 3.6 trillion economy now, will go to 6 trillion, 10 trillion. The fact is you cannot afford this obstacle course at a 28 to 35-year-old, the 41% becomes 26%. Then when you go towards the glass ceiling, it becomes 12%. And then now, after the broken rung and then the glass ceiling, the new phenomenon is the glass cliff, which is saying even super senior women professionals who have transcended the glass ceiling, and I feel like battered and bruised with their, with their foreheads bleeding, with everything that you've had to do, are leaving the workforce at twice the pace at senior men are. So the thing, I think those are very, very sobering data. At Harappa, we ran probably the largest research on Indian women professionals, because otherwise most of the data on the professional economy is very Western, and not even Western, very American. And so we polled. One of the data points that not just upset me, it pissed me off, because I agree that I don't think we're angry enough, and I think we're too pliant, and some of us need to be angrier a little bit more often to fix some of this. The worst data point, the point that really pissed me off, was when we started to examine wage gap data, right? And we did six wage compensation gap data, and we did that for people at early career, mid-career. We did 6 personas for 6 different tenure. The largest pay gap was right at the top for CXO and CXO -1, where women CXOs were earning 74 paisa to the 100 paisa for male CXOs. And I'm like, this is not a question of merit, right? This is not a question of equity. What more do you have to do to be able to get there despite all odds, and yet find that, your male colleagues, at a point where you feel like you've conquered equity, still find that there's the most gaping hole in your pay, the biggest gap in your pay gap from your male colleagues is when you are the senior most in the organization. So I think there is just actually a huge amount of work to do. And of course, technology, and a very quick question on technology, I think what's helping, for example, some really interesting anecdotal data that we need to build on. Army spouses, for example, or women who are, travel with their spouses to places where they can't now get. I think the gig workplace, the remote opportunities are really helping them. We're seeing very interesting uptake even at upgrad on courses on data science, for example, which can be done remotely. You can even access global remote jobs. And we're seeing a great enrollment of women who otherwise can't access full careers. And I think that's a really, and they're being smart about it. Women upskilling using courses online when they're returning back, because that's again a very, very big challenge. How do you come back after you've taken a couple of breaks? Are really using the right online courses which are easy for them to do, viable for them to do, that's helping them come back at the same salary or at higher salaries than when they left the workforces. So I think, the fact is we have to think of education for women for great outcomes from the time they're 23 to 55. We can't stop this game at 21, because clearly that's not enough, whatever the gross enrollment ratio is.
Thank you very much. Before we engage our audience, I want to stick to the AI solution, EdTech platforms, and innovative changes that may and are on the road. So my question is, to what extent can and are they already contribute to a bias-free, more gender equity education? This question goes to our 2 tech wizards. So Manish, would you... time is up. I'm reading this, but I think we touched upon this briefly. I want to hear your opinion on this. And then the floor is all yours. So get ready with your questions.
I'll just, and then he can add. So I think, what does AI do, right? I think it's more, I don't think we need to worry about what AI does. I think we just need to get first access to high quality education. I think online, high quality online has a very, very important role to play. And AI is one technology that online platforms can use. I think the fact is that the curriculum can be made sharper, more precise and more personalized, because we know whether it's affordability. Very few women professionals spend as much money on even skilling themselves. So the making things affordable and viable is a big advantage. Making them available so that you don't have to leave the home and can manage that. And I think the third thing that I really feel is there's a great revolution or a great something that we need to pay attention for. We need, and Mahesh does this for obviously younger students, I think we need on scaled career coaching and counseling for women, which they can access. I don't think the way the world economy is changing, there's so many interesting opportunities will get thrown up, even in, especially in an economy like India over the next 5, 7, 10 years. But to keep women professionals, whether who are in the workforce or not in the workforce, sort of, sharp on the changes, where are the real opportunities? I'm very disheartened often to say how limited a view, women professionals have on what are the real opportunities for them, and nobody really to have an engaged conversation. So I think career coaching at scale, precision personalized career coaching at scale with some diagnostic that can tell you some of your strengths and things like that is really something that will unlock a lot of opportunities and where technology can play a really important role.
Thank you very much, Manish. She said it all? Yeah, she said it. Wonderful. Talking about female empowerment. Yes, of course.
About the digital. You know how we've been using it to great success recently is, after COVID actually, during COVID and post, we didn't do it before, even though everything was available, we didn't think of it, was that I told you we have these critical dialogues on various things. So now there was no scope to have them in person, so we started having webinars. And we provided access to people who didn't have it. Girls don't have access to mobile, so we provided all of that. Guess what the advantage was? The advantage was that what the girls did very cleverly was they would have it in a public space where their parents could also participate, right? And so they said, oh, mommy heard you, and it was really very good, and they heard this one and that one. And then the questions are very provocative. Who beats whom in the house? So, okay, father does beat them. And when does the mother beat? She doesn't. Why? Because, of course not. So I said, but if someone beats her outside, will she retaliate? Yes. Then why will she not retaliate at home? What stops her? And then leading to discussions of power. So they would have everyone listen. And that was, of course, there were some places where they said, what are ye bakwas and all of that, but otherwise, it did work. And another very interesting way in which I find that, which we also just discovered was marital sites. You know how women don't have the right to choose their own husbands. And we found that they're all on Shadi. We encourage them to be on Shadi.com, etc., and we teach them how to be on it safely. And what it has done is given them the autonomy and the privacy to have a way to exercise their autonomous choices even for marriage. And that is a huge, huge important thing for them. So, this is one of the unintended consequences.
Counseling and therapy as well, and for campuses, right? And Maheshwer can speak much more about that. I think online counseling and therapy platforms are huge.
See, one of the things that happened post-COVID is that I think one of the big good things that happened post-COVID is that access to education is much more than what it was earlier, because we learned that online can do certain things that offline cannot do, right? And two, because of that, you have more girls. Like, if you go to Haryana and go to a government school, the parents don't allow the daughter to study hospitality, for example. Because, kyun? Hotel mein kaam karna padega. Those things are being broken because you say, okay, or dur jaake padna padega. Those things are now being broken, and hopefully, once she graduates, 3 years down the line, minds will change, mindsets will change, and she'll be able to join a place. So access to education is dramatically improved post-COVID. So that's one good thing that happened at a higher income strata, by the way, not still at the lower income strata.
Thank you very much. We could go on. Even COVID would pose another big subject, but I don't want to steal away the chances of our audience to address you and to hear even more fascinating insights. So the floor is opened, ladies, gentlemen, and the experts are yours. I see hands up. The gentleman here was the first.
I would like to request sort of folks who've not asked before to ask, and then we can sort of Go back. Yeah, we'll go back to the end then. And try to keep it to a question.
I think I can enforce that.
Yeah, hi.
Proves the point, right? So, please,
Hi,
where's
I'm
the
Jyoti.
mic?
Yeah, that's me.
Yes.
I'm Jyoti, and thank you very much. It was very interesting, except that I just had one or two comments / questions to make. The first is when I think you said that when asked from the girl child if she wants to, the brothers asked if they want to go, if she wants to go out and play in the playground, and what would she say? So my submission here is that probably she would say no. And one has to look beyond the yes and the no to see that it is a social fact that is conditioned by ideology, by values that transcend the individual. So even when the girl says, no, I like my ghungat, I like my burqa, I don't want to go out and play, that is where the people have to step in and try to, create a counter practice. And I think that's imperative. The second, thing that I wanted to say is, yes, we can't envision an Equiverse if there are no reservations and concessions, because the race was not even to begin with. And so these reservations are extremely important, but there seems to be a lot of problem in, giving those or in making them into policies. But the problem is also in the digital sphere, again, as you were saying. In the digital sphere, if you see, it's a very, very uneven rural and urban divide, where 83% of the women still don't have access to digital learning, and they are not allowed. And I did a project in Rajasthan where we tried to give digital phones to the women. They ultimately percolated back to the men. So they never get hold of this digital platform, which can be enabling for them. Therefore, these kind of negotiations between theory, ideology, and to generate a kind of counter practice, I think it requires a lot, and one has to understand that the Quran or the Hindu scriptures and all, we cannot just say that everything, this doesn't say this or that doesn't say this. They all say this, and that is what we have to understand. And if we just keep saying, no, everything, the religion state, it's all complicit. And till we keep taking the easy way out, I don't think there is a way out.
Thank you very much. We just go on with the next question and then come back to the Assembly of Ensign. There was only 2 comments, I guess. Yeah, I think so. If you have a mic, it would be helpful if you could stand up so that we could see you better. I know we sit a bit raised, but it would be lovely to see your faces.
Yeah, hello. I'm Dr. Jagdish Shrivhari, professor and ex-scientist ISRO. I have a general question. What specific steps are being taken by the concerned government and private sectors to implement the DEI programs at workplace, where DEI means diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Thank you very much. Okay.
Yeah, I can take it.
Manish?
So, across the board, actually, if you see, it's like the right to education is essentially 25%. So, talk about inclusion, right? And this is across the board. If you go into the government colleges also, there is a definitive thing which says that so many people should be coming from this socioeconomic class. Similarly, when you come to postgrad and undergrad programs also, increasingly in government institutions for sure, like I talked of IITs and IIMs and all. It is not mandated. IIM Trichy first started this by saying that I'll ensure that 30% of my class is at least 30% of my class is girls, right? And then it spread across the IIMs, and now the next level B schools also are implementing that. See, what happens is you need to start at the top and change the policy. If you can't change the policy, ensure that the topmost people are influenced to change it, because then everyone tries to follow them to be good. And most importantly, what happens is you take the ranking or rating or accreditation that is given by the Government of India. One of the biggest things that they add as a weightage is the inclusivity. The inclusivity is geographical, socioeconomic, gender, right? Now, each of these 3 have a score, a percentage score. And people are fighting to be a right on top across the board, and this also has a score, right? So the government is doing everything that within its power. Now, is it enough? No, it's not enough, of course. But I think we are moving in the right, way. Maybe we could have been slightly faster, but I think over the last 10 years, I've seen, as I said, 1,000 students in IITs, today 3,000 students in IITs. All IIMs today have 30%, earlier it was 12%. And all in 10 years. So we are moving in the right direction.
We work a lot on actually with companies. I mean, essentially what Harappa does is we have a school for managers, so lots of programs for managers, a school for women in diversity, so lots of programming on women in diversity, and a school for CXOs. Now, in the school for diversity, I'm an entrepreneur, so I'm an optimist at heart. So, of course, I do think things are changing. And I actually feel very bullish about companies being able to lead on social change ahead of our homes and societies. And I think that's really an opportunity employers have to do that wherever they are. Two of our very popular programs now that we've, at this point, maybe we have 30 cohorts of that going on in 20 different companies, is allyship for leaders and allyship for managers. And allyship is no different from what in the school that we spoke about, the boys also finding a voice. And what is allyship? What is bias-free thinking? What is psychological safety? We recommend that everybody who's a people manager must go through an allyship for managers training, and especially, and while obviously policy will fix what it has to fix, I really feel like we can't wait for every policy to be formulated and put into practice. We have to begin at the top. So the Allyship for Leaders program is essentially a 10-hour program for the top 20 people to at least introduce them to the idea of, and there we do like a listening session to say, moments of when people felt not included, which is the I in DNIB. So the allyship programs have been hearteningly sort of taken up. I thought it was sort of my personal agenda that I was driving, but we've been very, very positively surprised that there is much more uptake on allyship training, essentially, as it's called.
May I just add to actually both? I think I'm all for allocation of seats, and I think it really helps for people because then it makes it a policy level. You have to have them. But that's not enough. And even for the educating of employers, as you said, I think what we do in our organization is that every member of our organization, we are 600 of us, and happy to say 89% female, 11% male by design. And the point is that we still, even the males, even women have to be worked out of that. So we have continuous critical dialogues along with our staff as well, not just on gender, but on caste also, that recognize your unconscious bias. Recognize your unconscious bias. Because first you have to, and so you can't, see, giving access is not just having them in the room. You can be in the room and not feel you belong. Right? You can be in the room and still not be part of it and not feel equal. But to feel equal, to feel that you belong, and also for everyone else to understand that it's your duty to create that space, to help them belong. And for that, I think you have to do a continuous process of educating not just the employers, but everyone in the organization. And that works really well.
Very important question that, diversity. I think it happens at different levels, multiple levels. One at the policy level is the question to ask ourselves is whether our policy frameworks does include the differential pluralistic needs of the society or for that matter of education. This is something very, very important. Over a period of time, this has become much more flexible enough to accommodate the needs of those pluralistic needs. But a long way to go in terms of really happening if we are talking education in terms of either in classrooms or communities or for that matter, support systems. Because if in education officials, there is this inspector authorities and all that, the very fact that there are largely men there. And that has started now moving in terms of increased participation of support at the officials in terms of providing supportive supervision. The second part is, it's also planning in terms of when it's still not able to accommodate certain things, we need that differential programmatic strategies. One size fits all, we keep talking about it, But at the end of the day, these strategies needs to be done. For example, children with special needs. Are we in our plans to help those children in our pedagogical process? Or in terms of the language issues that children come from, are we looking up at those things? Now, certain things require real differential strategies, keeping local context in mind. And the last I just want to say, numbers provides only a particular way of understanding a situation or a problem. The discourse has to go beyond the numbers. That's where the key lies in, and that becomes the context. It helps in understanding the numbers, but it needs to go beyond if we are talking of these type of qualitative issues, and then help those differentials. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear panel, for the comprehensive
one
insight.
question.
We are not done yet. Don't worry. But
Can I ask one question?
we have had more. Yes.
It's towards the end.
Yes.
On your left, yeah. Thank you so much. Beautiful session. So much to learn from each one of you. My name is Divya Miglani. I'm a media revenue strategist, a professional car racer, and now on the board to train a lot of women in different aspects of life. It's very thrilling. I have snatched opportunities in my life, and I always come across a lot of subtle gender biases in my life, and not to highlight today myself, it's my mother Urmil Miglani. She has one question to all of you. And very sincerely and modestly she wants to ask you, and wants to present this in front of the whole audience here, saying that she has 2 older brothers. I'm the youngest sister, yeah? So she says whenever she falls sick, it's her first top of mind. The daughter is going to come and the boys are not going to understand. They are lovely, but wo bade mast hain. And daughter, she's more comfortable when the daughter comes and, sits with her. So it's her question, and she says, how do I come across that? Because it's so ingrained in my system that only my daughter can take care of me. So a very gentle question to all of you, whoever wants to address.
Thank you. I would love to take another question.
So I'm Rajat from Shivnadar University. I have a quick question. I won't take too much time. It actually follows from the last gentleman's comment. Can either of the panelists critique the national education policy from a gender perspective, the new educational policy that has been put out? So that's my first question. Anybody, right? The second question is, if the hypothesis is that the outcomes in primary and higher education, both primary and higher education, if the hypothesis is that girls do better than boys, and I think I can vouch for that, I've taught for several years, then in the workplace, it's clear that girls do worse than boys. So that leads to 2 conclusions in India, general conclusions, which is, one is that either our evaluation system is all awry, boys are actually doing better and not the girls, or there's something terribly wrong at the workplace. So which one is it? Yes.
Yeah, key question. Okay, we have a few more minutes, but I don't think we have more time for questions. However, I want this panel, every one of you, to respond. I know you want to, it's itching. So, and this will at the same time be your closing remarks. So there's the clock. Keep it precise, and do reward us with some last word wisdom.
To Mataji over there, that karke to dekhiye. Call your brothers and give your daughter a holiday, and pretend she's not available, and call your sons or your brothers, and let them sit with you and let them do, and you'll be surprised at how well they will do. You never have. So I think first you need to change the way you think. And I think for that, the way to change the way you think is just to change. Just do it and see what happens. See what happens. Just try it next time. And to Sir here, quickly, and that's my last thing, about girls do better than boys, and then you end up that girls don't do well in the workplace. I'll tell you, my father was genuinely perplexed when he saw the thing. And he asked me, he says, ye kaisa hai? Why are girls doing better than boys? Because in his head, boys are smarter than girls, so how do they do better? And in the workplace, clearly by then, all of the social norms, the patriarchy is truly kicked in. And the workplaces, they are so toxic for women, many of them, right? And so at that time, they are struggling. And then, of course, there's the pressure at home. They don't even say what happens half the time because then they won't be allowed to go. So clearly it is, at that time, it's the workplace and it's the societal norms that frame the workplace and what's going on inside.
I think the burden of competence and reliability we put on women in their homes, and all of us do that, and all of us, I'm a mom to a teenage son also, so I also put myself to those standards, is what I think, Rajat, creates the issue at the workplace. We are not just students there. We have a whole life with a whole set of other things that we need to be competent and functional and reliable on an everyday basis. So I don't agree that women don't do well at the workplace. Functionally, on marks and performance, they do. What they don't do is managing, and I don't want to, blame them only, but what doesn't happen is them prioritizing their careers, with just as much attention. And I keep saying some of us will choose to have children, we'll have other caregiving responsibilities. The fact is, when you start thinking about your career from a 60-year lens, and I think of it as a 60-year lens because I do want to work till I'm 80, the fact is then a 3, 4, 5-year-old break should not become this mortal deadly blow to your career, which it has become. I think we have to find, how is civilization going to go ahead if the women don't have the children? So I think we have to find a way to get this transition to be a little bit more seamless and much less tougher, and so that they can do better at the workplace.
So for the gender balance, our two gentlemen. The clock is ticking, but I know you have something wise to say.
The question from the gentleman from Shivnadar. See, the new education policy has not moved beyond preaching and philosophizing about many things. It's not moved beyond. So to say that you must have gender equity and gender parity, all of us here say that, but they had the power to move beyond that. They did not move that, and I'm pretty upset about it from that perspective. Ma'am, my mother has 2 sons, and we both are called in whenever she has a problem. I have 2 sons, and trust me, my wife calls up my son when she has periods also, and not me. So I think it's about the upbringing is, I'm just saying about my parents, right? So I think it's just about that. And lastly, about Shivnadar sir, the thing is, Shivnadar University. Yeah, absolutely, right. See, the need-blind policy is what makes a difference. Like in Shivnadar, you have a need-blind policy. When you create a need-blind policy at a university, you'll have greater diversity. When you don't create a need-blind policy, you'll only have a certain set of people. It will become ghettos. And I know a lot of universities in India who are the best universities, but are ghettos for rich people. And that's not what you should be.
Begur.
Just one more point on the policy related, just identifying and picking what is there. There is something called Gender Inclusion Fund in that. And also linked to, identifying socio-economic disadvantaged groups. Now, how does that translate? What is going to happen? The important thing for us to look at it or make it happen is focusing on going beyond infrastructural facilities. It provides that opportunity, but what I said earlier in terms of the nuances of the quality sort of things, which is required beyond that. And that's where the negotiations with the beliefs, that's where the negotiations of expression, and then slowly start. And this should start right from the beginning in the curricular transaction and process as well. That's why I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On my clock, we are still on time, so we did all well. Join me with the applause to our wonderful panel. Well done. Thank you so much. And I think we have set the right stage for the next one. Thank you.